Well, hey, my name's Caleb. If you don't know me, if you're new in the room, welcome. We're glad you're here. We're diving into something we do typically every summer. Nolan mentioned this, but we are going to have teaching and table discussion and panel feedback and then just kind of roll with a flow that looks like that for the rest of the evening. And so you guys will get at your tables to get to know each other a little bit better, to dive into some really significant questions. And you also get to, and I want to encourage you with this, there's going to be some people who walk in and they're like, oh my gosh, where do I sit? Would you guys be welcoming to like people who walk in late? Like if you see somebody who's like stumbling around, you'd be like, hey, come and sit here. And it would be a incredible gesture if y'all could do that for somebody, okay? But you guys want to hop in? Kind of where we're going tonight? So we are in week 3 of a series called Jesus and, where we're just looking at Jesus. Like unapologetically saying, hey, this is the person of Jesus, this is who he is, this is what he does, and we're really running into this truth. When people cross paths with Jesus, they are never the same. It's Jesus and we've got this passage from the Gospel of John that's kind of guiding us each and every week. So I want to read it for you again. John 1, verse 14 says this, "The Word became flesh, made his dwelling among us." This is what we call the incarnation of Jesus. It's what we celebrate at Christmas. It's God becoming human, fully God, but fully man. He took on flesh, made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory. So we're getting the author John, one of the 12, saying, hey, I've seen this. Like this isn't myth. This isn't allegory. This is eyewitness testimony. This is what I saw. And he wants us to see what he saw. So it says, this is what we've seen, his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. This picture of Jesus being full of grace and truth. Guys, there's some Christians who only look at the grace side of Jesus, and they miss his transformative truth. There's some Christians who only look at the truth side of Jesus, and they miss his life-changing grace. If you want to be a both-and person where you walk in the love of grace and truth, look to the person of Jesus because he modeled it. He was it. Jesus was grace and truth. And so I'm excited to jump into the story tonight. It's Jesus and our friendships, as Nolan mentioned. And we're going to look at the story of a man. In our church, we call it a wreck the roof story. It's a story of some friends that go out of their way to get to Jesus. Some people who stop at nothing to help their friend. And what it will be for us is a model of the kind of friends we should strive to be. It's a model of the kind of community we should strive to build. It's a model of the kind of passionate pursuit of Jesus together that we should have in our community as well. And we're going to do it, like I said, with some teaching, some table talk, and some panel. And so if you're a part of the panel, would you go ahead and stand up, head up on stage? Would you clap for them as they start to make their way up here? They're good people, but they said they're nervous. They were like, I'm so scared to do this, but they're gonna do such a good job. And so just a word while they're sitting down. When we get into some of this table talk, I just encourage you guys, would you lean into these conversations? Like at your table, would you lean in and set the tone with authenticity, with vulnerability, with realness? Like, don't just give what you think is the right answer. Don't just go, oh, this is the answer that will impress everyone at the table. But rather, would you actually, in your conversations with the people at your table, have a humble and honest pursuit of Jesus so that everybody present is encouraged and challenged and built up because of that conversation, okay? So, right over here, we've got a really good group of people. This is Annika right here. Would you guys give it up for Annika? Yeah. This is John, Johnny, Jonathan. He goes by many names. Yeah. That's my roommate. And then right here, this is Megan. You can give it up for Megan. Yeah. And last but not least, we've got Jasper right here. Yeah, give it up for Jasper. we've got a lot of horizontal stripes going on up here. Like, you kind of broke the trend, but that's okay. So, hey, go and grab your mics, turn them on. I want to know, what was your fictional character? Like, we're talking about friendship. Who is the fictional character you want to be friends with? What do you got? We don't need to dive deep, but we do need to know.
I do feel really good about mine.
Okay, what do you got?
If you ever seen the Penguin documentary called Surf's Up, mine would be Chicken Joe.
I'm assuming it's not a documentary, but
Not exactly.
I'm glad you called it that. That's great. All right, what else, guys? What else?
Well, I asked ChatGPT
As one does. Please give me an answer.
No, I was of who I'd be friends with as an Enneagram 9, and a lot came up, and I'm kind of embarrassed about it, but Winnie the Pooh was one of them because he's so
Winnie the
chill.
Pooh.
So chill and laid back, and he just likes to eat snacks and
That's
hang
great.
out. So
Just snacking with a bear who doesn't wear pants. That's weird. But I'm glad it's a possibility. All right, keep going. Please change the subject. Go.
So I'm a big fan of Phineas and Ferb, and so
Okay.
Ferb I think would be super chill to just
Someone in the
kinda
crowd's like, yes!
hang out with. Yeah, he'd be chill, just hang
Okay.
out with him, vibe.
You're like, I'm just a chill guy.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
a chill guy. That meme is past, right? That's not cool anymore? Okay, yeah, move on. Megan.
I said Pascal from Rapunzel just because,
Oh.
because I tend to be like Rapunzel, like head in the clouds, adventurous, and I need someone with a little bit of attitude to like bring me back down. So I chose
Okay.
Pascal but he's good for her. Like he's a good friend to her. He
Absolutely.
like follows her along,
Yeah.
I need that like companion, but I
Yeah.
don't need I need someone to bring me back down.
I'm
to
with
earth.
you. Is he an iguana?
Oh gosh, I
Chameleon?
He's a
know.
chameleon.
Chameleon.
He's a
yeah.
chameleon because he
He's a
changes
chameleon.
colors. That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
That's good.
So-
The perfect segue.
That is the perfect segue. I love that. So guys, we're gonna hear from you guys in a little bit, but I want us to dive into where we're going with some statistics. Do we have some stat people in the room? Who's like, I love numbers, I love stats, it's how I roll. Some people are being accused of being a stat person. They're like, nerd, look at him. So I've got some stats for you that are actually a little disheartening. And so people are like, no, not those stats. So this is stats on Gen Z. Stats on Gen Z related to friendship for your generation in the United States. So did you know that there are approximately 70 million American Gen Z? That's like 25 to 28% of the American population is your generation. And this is a massive poll that was done on the topic of loneliness. Because we can't talk about friendship without getting into the territory of loneliness. And so here's a couple stats I want to read for you. Here's the first one. 68% of Gen Z say that they feel shy or like no one in their life knows them well. 68%. That's 68% of 70 million young Americans. Here's the next one. 61% of Gen Z say that loneliness impacts their mental health on a daily basis. It's crazy. And mental health is an epidemic, right? And so you can see a correlation here just in the data. That due to loneliness, there's an impact on a daily basis, not like occasionally, but like on a daily basis for 61% of this 700 million population set, which is crazy. And then here's the last one. 73% of Gen Z say they are currently seeking new friends. But 52% of that number reported that they struggled to make a new friend in the past year. So if you interpret that data, it simply means this. Your generation wants friendship and doesn't know how to do it. Your generation wants connection and doesn't know step one. Your generation is extremely lonely, hates it, and doesn't know what the solution is. And so that's some national data. And I know that numbers can sometimes be so ubiquitous that we don't know what they even represent, right? And so we've done this before in CAM. It's been a while since we've done it, but we're going to do what's called a Mentimeter poll. It's a live poll of this room. We've got probably 200 to 215 people in the room right now. Maybe more. I don't know. I'm bad at guessing. But over 200 people that are going to contribute to this poll. So if you can go ahead and throw that up here. So scan this QR code on your phone, and what it's going to do, it's going to put you into this live poll. And I've got a series of questions that you will live react to. And then we'll see live results of the actual people in this room. Because it's one thing to have stats, it's another thing to know that the people you're surrounded by, what is true. And leaders, you're not Gen Z, or at least most of you aren't, but feel free to participate. That is totally cool and acceptable, okay? So we got 165 and climbing. So once we get off this slide, the QR code is going to go away, but there's going to be a website that you can type in your browser and then enter a code. And so yeah, if you lose connection or whatever, you can join back in just kind of using your browser. So, okay, you guys ready? You want to go to the first one? Yes. All right, first question of this Mentimeter poll. Do you resonate with the feeling of loneliness? Yes, I do, or no, not really. Just go ahead and react to that. We got 186 people in the poll. And so right now, over 130 are saying, yeah, I resonate with that feeling. That's a lot of people who know the feeling of loneliness. Not just in our nation, but in this room. Loneliness is known, it's been felt by the people in this room. Go to the next question. This one gets pretty real. What do you think is the primary reason for your loneliness? Would you say, man, I'm the problem? Other people are just difficult? My season of life is crazy? Or some other thing that's not listed up there? What would you say? I'm really glad I didn't put other as a type in, because you'd just put somebody's name. You'd be like, because of Derek. I hope there's not a Derek. I'm sorry, Derek, if you're out there. Yeah, so people going, man, my season of life is crazy. It's I'm working 3 jobs. I have a pet dolphin. There's so many things. I just moved to Louisville. Yeah. You got 54 people saying, I think I'm the problem. Here's something that I've recognized about this generation. The amount of times a young person, when I'm talking to them, they'll just be like, I'm just so awkward, man. And they'll give themselves a label and then basically lose before they start. If you put this over here, I'm not accusing you of that specifically, but that's what I see often. And it's real because that's how they genuinely feel, right? And then some people are saying, man, community is difficult, people are difficult. We got 25 others, which could mean just about anything else. So go and go to the next one. Rank what you're looking for in a group of friends. So you're actually dragging this into a ranked order of when you think about the friendship group you roll with, the people you're looking for, what are you actually prioritizing? We've got 5 different answers here. This takes a little bit more time to kind of figure out what to drag and drop, but it's interesting to see the results here. So feeling connected, spiritual accountability, being included, shared interests, having fun. Yeah. Someone's like, where's the girlfriend option? Is that in there? It's not on there, bro. It's not on there. Yeah. Man, a lot of people just feeling connected. Spiritual accountability, being included. I think number 3, the being included is sometimes I just want an invitation. I heard somebody describe that this generation feels like the most uninvited generation ever. Why does everybody else seem to have an invite and I don't? Seems to be pretty common. So yeah, feeling connected is number 1. Spiritual accountability, being included. That's pretty real. That's pretty real. So before you go to the last one, I want to preface it. I have absolutely no idea how this is going to work. We're going to give you guys the ability to type in an answer. And it's going to show on the screen. So just don't be a dog about it. Go ahead and go to the next one. I'll explain it. Would you respond with a single word or a short phrase? Fill in the blank. I need blank from my friends. Respect, Honesty, consistency, understanding, acceptance, love, support, honesty, support, time. Spence, I don't know if you could, or Stuart, your brother, Spencer, I'm so sorry. Can you scroll, if you're able, acceptance, inclusion, to be known and loved, accountability, loyalty, an ear, a willingness to listen, compassion, realness, ongoing support, acceptance and effort, time and love, biblical love, equal effort. Oh, that one hits. Communication, 5 chainsaws. Get out of here, dog. I hope that was a woman that put that. That would be so cool. She's like, I have a lot of trees. To be known, dino nugs, mac and cheese and time. My 3-year-old put that. That's great. Pet dolphins. More commonality and acceptance of my interests. Guys, this is good and troubling all at the same time, right? You can switch back over. Would you guys, Caleb is my homeboy. Thank you. That's great. Hey, give it up for Stuart. That was hard for him he was scrolling through all of that. And I called him by his brother's name. I'm so sorry. He did that for us all summer, so that's why, my bad, dude, my bad. So yeah, guys, that's the room. That's your generation. That's very real. And I want you guys to have an opportunity to just kind of debrief at your tables a little bit of that. So the first table talk is going to be this. I simply just want you to react to the results that you saw of that poll, okay? So what are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are you thinking after seeing that? What do you think maybe wasn't represented or could have been represented better or could have been asked? Just simply with the people at your table, react to what you're thinking and feeling based on those results, okay? So lean in at your tables, share with one another. 3, 2, 1, go. So we go from table talk to our panel over here. So I'm going to shift the room to over here. They had the same conversation you guys had, and I just want some feedback from them. So what did y'all talk about? I heard some laughter. I heard some, those moments when you hear like someone go, People are like, there's something good happening over there, right? So I heard some of that. So what do you guys got? What did y'all talk about?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that I noticed that was coming up there was just like people want effort in friendships. And, whether it was intentionality, whether it was pursuit, those are just some of the words that stuck out to me. Like, we just live in a culture where we want people to put effort into friendships. But I also think a downfall of that is we're not always also willing to put in that effort.
Yeah.
And so I think that is like why we see a lot of these statistics showing what they do. Like, people are lonely, but we also have to put that effort back in.
Yeah.
So
That's really good. My wife and I, when we were in our mid-20s, which seems like forever ago, we realized that there was this thing that we were doing, and it needed to be the opposite. We were more expectant than we were intentional. We were like, oh my gosh, our expectancy of other people is like here. Our intentionality towards people is like here. It needs to be this. We need to have a higher intentionality towards people. And when I say low expectancy, I don't mean like just be friends with anybody and have no expectations of them. I don't mean that. I mean sometimes we hold people to standards they'll never meet. They'll always fall short of. And so abundance of grace, but also an abundance of intentionality on our part. Yeah, that's good. What else, guys? What else?
Yeah, I'm a finance and accounting student, so I was like doing the math on the first question you asked of like people answering the poll. And if you do the math, it was like 132 said, yes, I'm lonely, to the 182 that answered.
Yeah.
And that's like 70%, which the number you gave us was like 70%. It was 68. But it's like, I think going into this, I was like, oh, yeah, we're all in church. We're doing better than culture. And it's like, just because we have Jesus and have eternal hope doesn't mean that we don't have the same struggles as everyone else around us.
Yeah.
So I think it was just interesting to see the numbers kind of match up, and you're like, dang, we're literally, like, on a number standpoint, we're not that much different than culture, which isn't to say that like we all suck and we need to get better. But it's like, even with Jesus, life is still hard and loneliness
Yeah.
is still real. So I think that's one thing we're chatting about.
Yeah, that's good. Either one of you guys want to chime in, Jasper?
My initial take on it was kind of like, oh man, this is really disheartening to see like our generation, my generation, being so lonely. But I think that that's something just so evident from our culture being, I know Annika mentioned it was very like a consumeristic mindset that
Yeah.
our culture has.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, there's so many things that can just draw us in and go, you're good. Like, just scroll until you feel connected. Just click until you feel like you have meaning, right? That's a temptation for all of us. Yeah. You want to throw anything in? Everybody else went. Why don't you go?
Well, mine's kind of funny. It's also
Yeah.
a little bit embarrassing, but my first 6 months of living in Louisville,
Yeah, she's from Phoenix, by the way. What, 3 years?
2 years.
2
yeah.
years? Yeah. Yeah. me too.
But I just didn't have any friends. I was not getting connected at church because it's huge, and I was so lonely. I literally downloaded Bumble for Friends. You can laugh. It's okay.
That's a thing?
Yeah.
Nice.
I learned it was a thing.
love that.
Did I meet up with any girls? No, I didn't. But that's the point I was at. Like, I was so lonely. I was like, yes, like dating app, but for friends.
That's great. In college, we made a farmers-only dating account for my friend Nick. That led to a really bad situation that I won't talk about on stage. So, hey, grab your Bibles, guys. Grab your Bibles. Someone's like, finally, my goodness. Turn to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 5. We're going to jump into a big chunk of Scripture. It's the story that Nolan read earlier. But I want to teach through some of these elements, and then we'll have some more table talk and panel conversation. We're starting in verse 17. Just a little bit of context here. By Luke chapter 5 in this gospel, you're seeing Jesus' ministry. We talked about this last week. His ministry is starting to become really well known. He's not a stranger to the crowds at this point. Like, his reputation precedes him. People are trying to go where he is. They want to hear from him. They want to talk to him. Jesus is essentially becoming famous at this point, right? And we know he travels into a town called Capernaum. He enters into people's homes, and people are being hospitable to him at this point. They're like, hey, would you come into my home? I'll host you. You can do some teaching from here. And that's kind of where we pick up in verse 17. So it'll be on the screen behind me, but you guys can also follow along in the Bible if you have it. So verse 17, one day Jesus was teaching, and Pharisees and teachers of the law. So Pharisees were like the religious elite for the Jewish people in this time in history. So they were the most educated, they were the most aware, they were kind of the people that society would look at and go, man, if anybody understands anything about God and theology, it would be these Pharisees, right? And then there's teachers of the law, which were people who were kind of blending kind of legal study with religion, and they were the people who kind of ran Jewish society. And so it says that they were sitting there because as the crowds begin to gravitate towards Jesus, the authority structure of society went, let's pay attention a little bit. Let's see what this guy has to offer. It says that they have come from every village of Galilee and from Judea and Jerusalem. And so they're in Capernaum, and it's listing different regions. This would be like if it said, they're in Louisville, but there's people who came from Nashville, Tennessee. There's people who came from Cincinnati. There's people who are journeying and traveling. Jerusalem was a 5-day journey to Capernaum. It means that there were people that heard about the route that Jesus was taking, and they said, let's take a 5-day either walking or riding donkeys. Anybody ridden on a donkey? Not comfortable at all. 5-day journey to get there. And so I have a rhetorical question that I want you to think about for a second, and it's this. What are you and your friends willing to do to get to Jesus? How much convenience do you expect and demand versus how much pursuit are you willing to undertake? Is there a collective effort between you and your community to say, let's go after him. Let's pursue Jesus. Let's go where Jesus is. Let's go where Jesus' people are. Or have you positioned yourself as a consumer, just wanting, without any pursuit at all? The text continues in verse 18, and it's where our story really picks up. Verse 18 says, some men came. Now, we don't know how far they traveled, but we do know some really important information about how they would have traveled. Some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a mat. And they tried to take him into the house to lay him before Jesus. So if you think about this idea of people going, we've got to get to Jesus. Gather your homies, let's go. Here's a group of friends where they say, we've got a friend who cannot walk. We've got a friend who can't. He can't do what we can do. Let's not make that disqualify him. Let's carry him. Whether it was a 5-day journey of carry him or whether they were already in Capernaum, we don't know, but we know they picked up their friend and they carried him to the location where Jesus was. They tried to take him into the house to lay him before Jesus. So here's a question we asked last week. Who you think Jesus is dictates how you approach him. This group of friends thought Jesus was something pretty substantial and significant and impactful. That they were willing to journey and carry and be inconvenienced and have blisters and then figure out a way. This group of men believed that Jesus could change the life of their friend. Guys, sometimes we won't even pay for Taco Bell for our friends because we're like, come on, dude, that's too much of an inconvenience. Sometimes we don't want to go out of our way to pick our friend up unless they give us gas money. I mean, the list goes on of things where we sometimes can reduce our friendship group to the people who only bring into our life that which we need, and we're not willing to give towards people. And here's a group of friends that look at a man and say, we will carry you to the one who could impact your life forever. So here's another rhetorical question pertaining to friendship. Man, what difficulties and inconveniences are you willing to overlook in your friends because you love them? You got some friends that are frustrating? Yeah, people are frustrating. Have you ever been frustrating? You got some people who need some stuff? You ever been in a situation where you need some stuff? We could have a whole conversation about like what's a healthy way of doing a give and take friendship. But I sure hope you've got some people who are willing to ask you to help them. And I sure hope that you are the kind of person that is willing to lean in and help. So the text continues, Luke chapter 5, 20 and 21. It says this, when Jesus saw their faith. Verse 19, my bad. Verse 19 says this, when they could not find a way to do this because of the crowd, it says that this group of friends went up on the roof and they lowered him on his mat through the tiles into the middle of the crowd, right in front of Jesus. So they couldn't get in. So to lay out the context of this, they're approaching this house. It wasn't uncommon in this time for people to host a semi-private, semi-public gathering. What people would do is they would have a public figure who would enter into their home, and then they would kind of publicly declare, hey, such and such is in my home, and I'm hosting them. It was kind of a flex. It was kind of a social flex. It's like, hey, look who's in my house. And then they would invite the people who were most significant in their life to come into their home, to occupy the space in their home. And then people would gather around and peer in the windows and listen. And then it was like this semi-private, semi-public social moment. And so these men who carry their friend, they realize, oh, we're not getting in the house. We can't even get in the door. We can't even see in the window. And so then they come up with a solution. And once again, it's so easy to read this and kind of blow right past it. They're at a stranger's house. And one of them goes, I mean, we could get on the roof. And I'm picturing like one of them who's like a planner who actually thinks about it. He's like, are you crazy? He's like, I mean, how hard would it be? And then their paralyzed friend's like, no, that sounds super dangerous. They're like, we got you, bro. Don't worry. He's like, no, I didn't agree to this. They're like, no, we're going to take you up on the roof. And then imagine like one of them getting up there and being like, all right, hand him to me. And he's like, I'm not sure about this, guys. They're like, we've got you. And they're like passing their friend up onto the roof, and they get up there, and then it says they would have had to remove tiles from the roof. So most likely a terracotta tile built out of clay, which would have only been on wealthier homes. And they're like, we'll just rip a hole in the roof, as one does. Which means as they're tearing a hole in the roof, the host of this house, who's probably really proud of himself because he's like, Jesus is in my house. And he's got all of his important friends in the room with him. And then he's like, peasants are on the outside. And then all of a sudden, tile starts falling from the ceiling. And he's like, Can you imagine a mixture of the murmurs, the disgust, the how dare you? And then they start to lower their friend down through the hole they tore in the roof. And I picture Jesus with a smile on his face. Just like, wow. Don't miss how crazy this is. Don't miss how culturally backwards this is. Don't miss how even potentially disrespectful this is. It's crazy. But they said our friend needs to get to Jesus. So now verse 20 and 21. It says this. When Jesus saw their faith, he said, friend, your sins are forgiven. So I want to point out this, right? We've got different pronouns here. When he saw their faith, the collective group of friends, when Jesus saw their collective faith, Jesus put it all together. I think many people were only thinking about the house. Jesus was thinking about the faith that was exhibited. When he saw their faith, he then turned to the man who'd just been lowered on the mat in front of him. And he said, friend, your sins are forgiven. Which is interesting because I'm not sure they brought their friend to have his sins forgiven. I think they brought their friends in hope that he would be able to walk again. But Jesus says, friend, your sins are forgiven. It says the Pharisees and the teachers of the law began thinking to themselves, who is this fellow who speaks blasphemy? Who can forgive sins but God alone? And so here's this moment where the effort and the faith of this group of friends to lower their paralyzed friend down on the ground before Jesus, Jesus is about to change this man's life. And so here's a rhetorical question I want to ask you. How has your faith impacted the lives of your friends? You could ask it a little bit more pointedly. Does your faith impact the lives of your friends? I heard a story in my hometown of the church that I went to when I was in high school of a preacher who was really good friends with one of their deacons. And he was sharing one time at like an elder deacons meeting, like, hey, what are some stories of God working in your life? And this one deacon raised his hand and he goes, I've worked in the factory over here on that assembly line for 30 years, next to Frank. Frank and I are good friends, and just the other day, we both found out we go to church. And he said, all these years, and I'm just finding out you're a Christian. And we can easily judge that person, but think about how easy that is. Think about how easy our need for comfort dictates what we do not say. Think about how much our comfort and our need to avoid the awkward dictates where we don't go, what we don't bring up, who we don't challenge, what we don't speak about. Sometimes we are way more concerned where we'd rather keep the peace on the outside while we're dying on the inside. And I wonder if Jesus would rather have us with some more boldness where our faith in Jesus and our pursuit of him would impact the people we call friends. So Luke 5:22 through 24, the text continues. It says this. Jesus knew what they were thinking. He's talking about the Pharisees, these teachers of the law. And he asked, why are you thinking these things in your heart? They're like straight up judging this moment. Jesus has compassion. All they're concerned about is all the social norms are being just disregarded in this moment. They're also judging Jesus because he put himself in a position to forgive sins. So then Jesus asked, which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven? So Jesus acknowledged, I can just say something and it doesn't really mean anything, right? Anybody could say this phrase. How do we know there's any power behind it? He says, or is it easier to say to a crippled man, get up and walk? So Jesus is setting up a challenge here, publicly, in front of these religious leaders who are judging him. He says, but since I want you to know that the Son of Man has the authority on earth to forgive sins, so he said to the paralyzed man, I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home. So something's about to happen, but I first want to draw your attention to this. In a story that's really designed for us to be in awe of the faith of a group of friends, the conversation also turns to this idea of forgiveness, which makes us wonder, what role does forgiveness have in the life of friendship? So the text continues and it kind of wraps up in verse 25 and 26. It says, immediately this is the man who couldn't walk, he stood up in front of them. He took what he had been lying on. He took the mat that he had been lying on, that he was carried on, that he was dependent for. He took it up under his arm and he went home praising God. Everyone was amazed and gave praise to God. They were filled with awe and they said, we have seen remarkable things today. I want to lean into this for just a second. It says he took what he had been laying on. Guys, we need to be people who lean in and receive help from our friends and ask for help, but we also need to be people who don't create codependency friendships. And sometimes we can be a people where we put so much onto our friends. Man, you have to invite me to everything no matter what, even when I tell you no every single time. You have to do this for me. And sometimes, guys, we can be so caught up in this fear that I'm not loved that we, without even realizing it, we put our friends through all these love tests. And we really just want them to affirm how much they care about us. And we almost play hard to get because we fear so much that we're not actually accepted, and we live in such a way where it makes it hard for us to be accepted because we can just take. But I want you to see this picture of a man who was carried by his friends because he needed it. And then when he met Jesus and he was healed, he picked up his own mat and he walked. Would you allow the love that your friends show you to be something that fills you with love and then you give it back? You don't just eat it up and ask for more. So be a friend that you receive when you are in need and you give when they are in need as well. And so when these people say, we've seen remarkable things, they saw a man who was crippled get healed and walked, but they also saw forgiveness. And this leads us to our next table talk conversation. In the midst of a story about friendship, we see Jesus bring up this topic about forgiveness. And so here's your next table talk question. How have you seen a lack of forgiveness destroy a friendship? How have you seen people who are unable to forgive, people who withhold forgiveness, just affect and damage and destroy good friendships? How have you seen that? I want you guys to lean in at your tables, have that conversation with each other. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, we're going to take it over to our panel and get some thoughts and feedback from them kind of on this question. This idea of forgiveness being kind of a component of friendship, right? That, my gosh, I think like if you don't know how to practice forgiveness, it's going to be hard for you to have friends beyond the short term, right? And so I just want to know what you guys talked about based on this question. So what do you guys have for us? Where'd the conversation go?
So mine is kind of an example. I remember in high school I had a really good friend, and some bad stuff happened between him and some other person. So it's just, I never got over that forgiveness. Like I never was able to forgive him for the longest time, and I don't even know if I have. But then on the contrary, two of my best friends, one being my wife over there, shout out. We have to deal with.
You got an awe from the crowd. Well done,
Thanks,
man.
guys. Thanks, appreciate it. No, we have to deal with forgiveness all the time. I mean, that's a huge part. If we didn't, our relationship would be miserable. And the same with my other best friend. I mean, it'd be like, we all make mistakes, and I think it's so important, but it's extremely difficult to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, a lack of forgiveness just creates such a wall and such tension.
Yeah.
And you can't really step further than that. And I think there's several instances. Forgiveness is so freeing, which is why Satan hates it so much.
Amen.
Because he wants us to be trapped. And I think of even the really recent situation of Charlie Kirk's memorial and his wife on stage, talking about forgiveness and her forgiving the assassin and her saying, hey, Jesus forgave. So we sometimes don't hold that to ourselves and don't think that we need to forgive. And it's not a need, it's an opportunity.
Yeah. I heard someone say, the opposite of forgiveness is not unforgiveness, it's resentment. And resentment is like sipping poison and thinking that it's going to affect the other person, but it just kills you, right? So, yeah. Ladies, how about you guys? Where'd the convo go?
Yeah, Megan said something really true is
Just
that.
quoting Megan over here. This is
Yeah,
great.
well,
You're
well,
getting
it
quoted.
ties into
This
my
is awesome.
story.
Yeah.
She said that when you harbor unforgiveness towards someone, it doesn't just affect that friendship, but it affects the people around you. So I was just thinking, my mom was our youth pastor back home, and she had a friend who was also a youth pastor, and they were best friends. Just being around them, it's contagious, how good of friends they were. Stuff happened with our church. We had a church split. And there were just some things that were kind of miscommunicated between my mom and this other youth pastor. And all of a sudden, it was like this bitterness was just being harbored between them. And they didn't talk about it, but they were being passive aggressive and just all this stuff. And so they never reconciled, which was heartbreaking for me to see. And then the other component of that was that I was really good friends with this youth pastor's daughter because we were the same age. And so all of a sudden, then there was this tension of does your mom hate my mom? Are we in a weird place because of this? And so we had to work through that too.
Absolutely.
Spiderweb.
Yeah. Megan, do you want to quote anybody on the panel? Anything they said?
They said their stuff. They did great.
There you go. Yeah, I love it. Well, I've got one more thing for you guys, and it's simple, but I want it to be practical for you. So it's kind of this idea of we need to be friends who, and I've got 4 things for you, okay? And so we need to be friends who, and we're using this story of this group of friends that come to Jesus as kind of the model. And so, the first one is simply this, and it's pretty obvious, but I want to unpack it a bit. We need to be friends who pursue Jesus together. Emphasis on together, okay? Think about this group of friends if they tried to do this solo. The man who couldn't walk wouldn't have even been able to get there, okay? Think about if only one of them decided that we should get up on the roof. He couldn't have climbed and pulled up his friend, right? Think about all the things that if there's not a togetherness in their pursuit of Jesus, it could not have been this story. And we need to have a together pursuit of Jesus, a arm in arm, locked together, let's pursue Jesus. And this looks like a lot of things. This looks like find like-minded and like-faith people. I'm not saying that if you disagree with people, they can't be your friends. But what I am talking about? Purpose and trajectory. If you want to live a life of sacrificial love and faithfulness, find people who are willing to do the same, because it means their trajectory is the same as yours. And if you've got a friend that only cares about the accumulation of material goods, but you're wanting to pursue a God who had in Jesus very little earthly possessions, might mean that your life and what you value most would be headed in different directions. Doesn't mean you can't be friends with them. That's not what I'm advocating for. But I am advocating that you need friends. This is not a statement of who you shouldn't be friends with. This is a statement of who you should be friends with. People who are in pursuit of Christ like you are. right? People that want to know him in his word, people that are warriors of prayer, people that are vulnerable confessors of sin, who will meet you in the midst of grace, point you back to Jesus. And you cannot do that alone, and you cannot do that while you're pretending, and you cannot do that while you hide your limp. If you are hurt, you need people who go, we can carry you. So you need to be pursuing Jesus together. I remember a conversation with my friend Zach in high school where basically all we did was play Halo, paintball, and basketball. That's all we did. It was 2006. And I remember one time we went to like a youth group thing in our friend's church, and we were riding back like on the same seat of a bus, and I was looking out the window, and then like behind me I heard him go, we don't ever talk about Jesus. And at that time, I was not really like following Jesus. And so I didn't even turn around. I was just like, yeah. I regret that. It was only a couple years later when I started following Jesus, and then he started dealing drugs. And I could think back to when we were kind of in the same season of life, and he was the one who brought up Jesus, and I turned my back on him in that moment. And then we kind of went our separate ways, and I found Jesus, and he did not. You need people you can pursue Jesus with. So be the one who brings it up, or be the one who responds when it's brought up. But find your people, and do it with intentionality. Here's the second thing. Be friends who give and receive help. Be friends who give and receive help. Now, once again, think about this story. Think about this man who couldn't walk. I think about when they're like, hey, and I don't know his name. Let's call him Brian. They're like, yo, Brian. He's like, hey, guys, you want to go on a journey? And he's like, no. They're like, no, we have a plan, dude. Like, we're gonna carry you where we're headed. They had to offer it, he had to receive it. But there was a yes on both ends. And if you're in a really good friendship with really good people where love is a facet of what's going on, what you'll find is there's a giving and there's a receiving, and there's a giving and there's a receiving, and there's a thank you for that. Here's what I have. And they're trying to outgive one another in the way that they serve. I think about, we've got in a group of friends that I roll with, a couple that flips houses. And my wife and I were looking to buy a new house. And they have said, when you go to look at a house, you had better call us, because we'll go with you and walk through it. Because when I look at a wall, I'm like, it looks great. When Scott looks at a wall, he goes, it's got dry rot in it. And he's going, let me give you my expertise as a way of serving you as my friend. I don't want you to be taken advantage of. I've got a friend who's a physician. Multiple times I've been like, yo, and he's like, absolutely, how can I help? And he doesn't send me a bill. When we have our friends, we trust them by going, can you help me? And we love them by going, yes, because the roles might switch. Build a reputation of being yes on both sides of this. Because otherwise, and I talked about it just a little bit ago, this man who was once carried on a mat, when he was better, he picked up his mat. You want to be the person that when your friends meet your needs, now that your needs are met, you become a meter of needs. Not a perpetual person that only has and demands that their needs get met. But let the love your friends give you fill you up so that you can pour out to them as well. Otherwise, it is one-sided and you are not being a friend. You're being a person in need, which we all have. But if you want friendship, you give and you receive. So be friends who do that. Here's the third one. Be friends who forgive one another. Be friends who forgive one another. I see so much hurt in friend groups of young adults. And I think there's a lot of reasons why. I think there's a lot of people who they graduate from high school, they go into a season where they're exceptionally lonely and they don't know why. And so when you're really lonely, it's kind of like being really hungry. You kind of like, eee. Like, they say like don't go shopping when you're hungry. Sometimes when we're really lonely and we finally find friends, we can like hoard them and become protective and not want anyone else to talk to them. Oh, whose house were you at? Cool. How'd that go? You laugh, but you're like, dang it. He knows. Guys, sometimes when we go from like our high school experience of like connected in community to all of a sudden lonely, and then when we find our people, we want to put fences around them. And we get crazy jealous, and we get crazy hurt, and we want to like prevent people from leaving us. I'll tell you this, if your motivation in your friendships is simply to not lose them, you know what you'll do? You'll lose them. And there's a whole lot of hurt that can happen within that dynamic. Things will be said that are misinterpreted. Things will be said that'll be misheard. People will say things that, because sometimes when people meet as young adults, they come from different parts of the country, and they're like, when people say that where I come from, that doesn't mean what it means to you. And if you don't have the desire or the ability or the strength or the wisdom to sit in the midst of that tension and try to understand and try to grasp where they're coming from and say, I'm sorry when you're the one who brought what shouldn't have been brought to the table, and to forgive someone when they brought something to the table that they shouldn't, then what you'll end up doing is having very short friendships to the very short friendship to the very short friendship to the very short friendship, and then you'll be 30 and you'll go, where are my people at? I don't think there's an adult in their 30s and 40s who has deep friendship who hasn't learned how to say, I'm sorry, or to forgive those who seek forgiveness. Practice it now, receive it from the Lord, give it to the people in your community. And what it will do is it'll add lifespan to your friendships and depth to your connection, and will build trust. So be people who know how to practice that. Here's the last one. Be friends who express gratitude and praise. We see this picture of this man who got healed and forgiven, and it says that he is expressing praise, he's shouting, he's thanking the Lord. It says that the crowd praised God because of what they saw. Here's something that I encourage a lot of young men to do. I think women do this better than men, but it doesn't mean that there aren't some women in the room that need to work on this. You might have the feeling of gratitude for your friends, but they don't know that. How could they? Because it's weird and vulnerable to look at someone and go, man, I love you and I'm grateful for you. That's weird. But you know what it does? It communicates that you love them. It cultivates deeper connection. Just a couple months ago, I took a day away. Our church gives our pastors what's called desert days, where we can kind of get away and just get in God's word and pray. And I read through the Gospel of Mark, and there's some teachings on prayer in that gospel. And then I was like, man, I want to send a voice memo to a bunch of different people. And I was just going through a list of men in my life, and just guys from where I grew up, and just sending voice memos. And words that just flowed out of me were thankful, grateful, love, miss, looking forward to. And here's what I've learned as a 35-year-old who has experienced both loneliness at times, but also deep connection. Oftentimes, the most catalytic thing in your life that'll draw you closer to people is your ability to speak words of love, words of gratitude, words of praise. And sometimes, and I'll talk to the guys in the room, guys, sometimes we are so concerned with coming across in a particular way that we would rather be silent and tough than vulnerable and loving. Get that out of your system. Your friends need to know you love them and that you're grateful for them. Doesn't mean you can't say, bro, you're stupid sometimes, in love. I'm not advocating against playful whatever. But if you can't also hug that man, look him in the eyes, and tell him you love him, there's a problem that you're comfortable tearing him down, but not comfortable building him up. And here's another thing that I've learned, speaking to the men in the room. If you can't do that with your friends, you will not do that with your sons and daughters. Practice it now. It's so important. Be vulnerable with the people in your life. Let them know that you love them. Let them know that you care. Get over the discomfort and the fear of what that might mean. It'll actually transform you as much as it will impact them. There's a dual benefit in that, and that's how God intended it when we speak words of love. It actually fuels the whole community. So would you say these things? Ladies, I think you do this more naturally than men. If I could be bold enough to challenge you in this way, would you mean it when you say it? I think for whatever reason, and there's always exceptions to this, so don't hear me stereotyping, but I think girls learn a little bit more early that like words of affection can draw people in, and sometimes they use it as a tool. And sometimes they're really good at using their words to get from the person what they want rather than to just give it to them as a free gift expecting nothing in return. So would you learn to speak words of gratitude and praise without it actually being a moment where you're fishing to get the exact thing back from them, but rather just something that you give away as a free gift to the ones that you love? So would you be friends who express gratitude and praise to one another? Here's our last table talk. I want you guys to unpack this at your tables with one another. So right here on the screen, we've got which of these do you think the Lord is asking you to grow in as a friend? We've got those 4 listed. A pursuit of Jesus together, that you would be a person who gives and receives help as a friend, that you would practice forgiving one another as a friend, or expressing gratitude and praise towards your friends with your words. Which of these would you say, man, I feel like the Lord is putting in my heart, I need to cultivate that, I need to grow in that. And not looking to shame you, but looking for you to recognize that God might be calling you into an area that he wants to do something new because he's got great things in store for you. So turn to one another at your table, lean in, have that conversation. 3, 2, 1, go. Before we jump into our panel, if you haven't, would you snap a picture of the screen right there? And I encourage you, I challenge you, would you spend some time in prayer before you go to bed tonight, just saying, Lord, what do you want me? And this is not shame. I hope you recognize this. When the Lord brings to your attention something he wants to grow in you, he is not shaming you, he is inviting you. I hope you recognize that. He is inviting you into transformation to make you new and who he created you to be. He is not shaming you. And so if you can approach him with a voice and a joy that says, God, have your way. What do you want to do? Which of these do you want me to grow in and focus in? He will meet you in that space. So, panel, what'd you all talk about? I would love to hear a few comments on your conversation. What do you guys got?
I think the one that sticks out to me is giving help in whatever capacity that looks like. I think partly because I never want to feel like I'm intruding or like overstepping in someone's life. But honestly, I think the other part of it is just laziness and not wanting to reach out, but then also follow up of like, oh, I'm actually going to pray for you in this, or I'm actually going to show up physically and do this for you.
It's a good word.
Yeah, challenging.
You guys know in the realm of trauma and crisis therapy, they'll tell you one of the worst things you can ask someone in a really difficult time is, how can I help you? because you just burden them with the decision making. And one of the best things that you can do is your best humble guess at giving to them what you believe will impact them. And have the courage. You might be wrong. When my wife's father unexpectedly passed away, we had friends who showed up having no idea what to say, but I remember who was there. Sometimes the greatest gift is just your presence, showing up as a fool but full of love. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but do something. Makes a big difference in people's lives. So, give me a few more. What do you guys got?
Yeah, so mine was kind of the opposite of Annika. I really struggle with receiving help. And it is totally like a pride thing and a fear thing. In my mind, I was like, if I was that lame man, I think if my friends tried to come and help me, I'd be like, nope, that's okay. Like, I don't need your help.
I'm good. I don't like travel.
Yeah, I can do it on my own. Don't worry about it. And then I think about, like, man, if he had said that to his friends, like, what would the result be? Like, he wouldn't have experienced Jesus. He wouldn't have experienced the healing and the forgiveness that he did. And so that's personally something that's really convicted me, is like, okay, Megan, would you, if your friends offered help, like, are you going to receive that? And often, like, my human nature, like, no, like, that's not who I am. And like, it's fear and it's pride. And so that's something that I know that I personally need to grow in. Because, man, I just sit here and think, like, wow, God does use friendships to help us experience him and to, get us out of dark places.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I
That's so
would
good,
say.
especially when friendship and realness are both present. Like, sometimes vulnerability is a gift that you give because it enables people to love you how you really need it. And if you're not vulnerable, then people are only guessing, right? What about you, gentlemen? What you guys, they're looking at each other, it's like, you go, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I think to add on to Megan's, I just think it's almost kind of funny for us looking at it after the fact. It's just like, if the lame man said, hey, I don't want your help, what's he going to do? Stop him? And it's like, sometimes Jesus puts us in a place where all we can do is receive help.
Yeah.
And I think that's especially, like, true when it's with Jesus' help. Like, we get put in such a low place where we're like, I can't not have you help me. Like, I don't have the ability to stop you. And I just think that's super rich. And that was something I liked about that. I think we both talked about, and I want to hear your perspective on it, was just the gratitude and praise. And we kind of were like, yeah, no, that's fair. Like, I mean, it's easy for me to say to my fiance, like, hey, I love you, babe. But it's a lot harder for me to say that to my roommate, Nolan.
He's right there. Say it to him. Say it to him.
Love you, babe. Man, I'm glad I got that
Guys,
off my
that's
chest. Wow.
That's called avoidance.
That's
right
called
there.
sanctification right there. That's a
coming.
quick process.
It's
No,
coming.
but yeah, Jasper, your thoughts about that? Yeah,
Take us home, Jasper.
Yeah, so mine's a bit of a story. So Caleb, you messaged me, and I saw it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going on stage, no way. And then you said friendship, and I was like, oh man, the people in my life, my friends, are just amazing. And so I called one of my buddies, and I was absolutely terrified to tell him, hey man, you've changed my life, I love you. And I was just like, I literally couldn't say it for like probably, we were on the phone for like probably 10 minutes, and it was like
Just
halfway
silence.
through.
Hold on,
halfway
dude.
through I made it, but
Getting there.
yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's really something that's, as men, I think it's hard. We just aren't, it's just not how we are made. So
Yeah.
I think it's good practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for your honesty. We've got one more moment. We're going to do a Selah moment in the room. And I want to give us some space. You guys stay put up here, and then you guys at your tables. There's a verse of Scripture that has a direct impact on who we are as friends, and then there's a prayer prompt. But I want to give us a couple minutes to sit in silence and reflection just on what the Lord has said to us tonight. And then we'll kind of wrap up after that, eat some pizza, hang out. But we're going to enter into a Selah moment. You can go ahead and throw that up on the screen. take the lights down maybe a little bit, play some music, and we'll spend some time just in reflection on what the Lord has said tonight.